And welcome back to the OHIO podcast, everybody. And as you can see, I'm joined by my special guest, Tyler. He's a mod. He's a Buckeye fan. Some might even consider him a troll if they're rooting for the wrong team. But Tyler's with us today. He is our fan interview for this week. Tyler, welcome to the OHIO podcast, buddy.
Thank you, Eric. Glad to be here.
Good to have you. First off, let me thank you for all your hard work as moderator for the OHIO podcast. You're doing a great job keeping things nice and calm in the chat and keeping everybody in line, my friend. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. It's all about respect.
That's right. That's right. And this is somebody who knows all about respect, folks. Tyler, give everybody a little bit of a background about yourself for those who might not know a whole lot about you.
So I was in the military for 7 years. I got medically retired from the Army. I have 100% disability. I have, the Army gave me back problems, knee problems, neck problems. And so I live with my wife she's in the military too. So me and her, we're big on respect. And respect goes both ways.
Absolutely. It absolutely does. So, thank you for your service, first off. I will say that for everybody as well who will probably do the same in the chat when they see this interview. Always like to make sure and give a shout out to our veterans and everything that they've done and keeping us safe and out of harm's way here in the United States. So, and thank you to your wife's service as well. Very cool that you guys are a military family there. So, where did you meet her at? And is she a Buckeye fan?
So I met her in Georgia. She's from Georgia. Um, she originally, unfortunately, at Eric, she was a Clemson fan.
Oh, oh.
So because her friend was on Clemson's football team,
Ah.
but he eventually passed. He passed away.
Oh, I hate to hear that, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So she eventually became a Buckeye fan for me. And she's learning how it's not healthy sometimes being a Buckeye fan from time to time.
No, it's not, buddy. No, it's not. That's funny.
Yeah.
It's healthy to be one this year, though, man.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is.
you got your natty stuff on. I got my natty
Yeah.
hat on to match you. So we're celebrating a national championship this morning. But I'm glad you were able to somewhat convert her over to the good guy side, man.
Yep. Yep.
All right, so give me your background on how you became an Ohio State fan.
How I became an Ohio State fan was originally I wasn't really big into football, Eric. I was actually so I'm really more into when I was a little kid, I wanted to be I'm really big on Steve Irwin and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I actually wanted to go into zoology and stuff like that. I really, he was my idol, and when he passed away, it was a hurt my heart. It,
Hmm.
it did. So I I used to know being in Ohio. You know that the Buckeyes are good, but I just was never interested in them. But then I started watching them in 2012, and the first game I watched was against Michigan when Zach Bourne knocked down Devin Garner, and I was like, "Wow, that's actually kind of fun to watch this." And then I was like, "Maybe I'll watch it next year." And then the Tyvis Powell at the 2-point conversion game. I was like, this is actually fun to watch this. This is really fun. And then the next year we won the national championship. It's like, okay. Because I love winning. I love winning. So 3 years into my Buckeye fandom, I became a national champion. But in my lifetime, I've seen 3 national championships.
Yeah.
So it's it really makes me feel good that I know my team has had sustained success for a long time. And not many teams, actually, I take that back. No other team across college football has had the sustained success as Ohio State.
That's right.
And
Mhm.
that's quite an accomplishment.
It's a huge accomplishment. Yeah, it's something Bama hasn't done, Georgia hasn't done, Michigan definitely hasn't done,
Yeah.
USC hasn't done it, Miami hasn't done it, Oklahoma hasn't done it. I mean, it is a massive accomplishment to have the sustained success that Ohio State has had. You go back and you think about the worst seasons Ohio State has had, they were still 500.
Mm-hmm.
Like, which is a great season if you're like a Purdue fan, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like it's amazing to think about the high level of expectations that we have as Ohio State fans, coupled with just the sustained success that comes with the job and the territory. And is that stressful for someone like Ryan Day? You betcha, it absolutely is.
It is.
But it is also a privilege, right? I think
Mm-hmm.
C.J. Stroud said that pressure is privilege. If you think about it, having this much pressure is a privilege because that means you're playing at one of the greatest programs that to ever play the sport. So, all right, so you became a fan in basically the start of the Urban Meyer era, is what it sounds like.
Yep.
Um, and then, of course, so you've really never seen uh, the '90s. Obviously, you're probably way too young for that. But
I'm 29, so I was way, way, way too young.
yeah, do you remember the Trestle era at all?
Oh yeah, I've watched the Trestle era back now that I but I only watch specific games, Eric, because you know
Yeah,
why? I want us to have the success.
right, right. That makes sense, right? Yeah. What about the Holy Buckeye game? Have you watched that one with the
Oh
Ohio State Purdue?
yes.
Yeah, that's probably still to this day my favorite moment. I mean, Jack Sawyer's scoop and scores right up there with it as far as just iconic moments to think
I'm
about
so
and to
happy for
reflect on.
him.
Yeah, talk to me a little bit about that.
The man grew up in Columbus, and he's he had to suffer through not going down that rabbit hole, but he had to suffer through actually I will Connor Stallions, and the fact that he was the guy that grabbed that flag on November 30th
Hmm.
really told me a whole lot about his character and how much he really do cares about Ohio State and the total lack of respect that he that the other team gave us. It really shows me that Jack really does care about Ohio State, and
Oh yeah.
the fact that he got to have his moment in quite possibly the biggest game of the year in the biggest moment against Texas, it really, as an Ohioan, I think that was the most proudest moment he probably had.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Day even said it was at that moment that he realized they were probably going to win the national championship, and
Hmm.
he told Urban in that interview it's because the ball had never bounced like that for us before. There was some kind of fortuitous bounce of the
Hmm.
football, the momentum that just told Ryan like it's finally going to go our way, right? So many things had gone against Ryan Day and this team. You go back to the Georgia game, where if they win that football game, they probably win the national championship against TCU. And here you're in a situation where, uh, you know, you get a flag, you get basically a penalty overturned. Should have been targeting, which would have
Yeah.
changed the entire trajectory of that game. You 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 don't make the field goal, although I contest that they should have kept passing the football in that situation, but I digress. Um, there's so many things that just kind of went against Ryan Day in that
Hmm.
scenario. The other time they played in the national championship against Alabama, they
Where we
just
had half a team.
yeah, you got guys sick from flu and COVID and everything else. You've got basically a defensive coordinator, so you're already who's way overmatched. So
Hmm.
you're already playing the game with one hand tied behind your back. Um, just so many situations like that where it finally came together for the guy. What's your thoughts on Ryan Day, Tyler?
I think that we've truly. I think that this for a lot of people. This is what they people say about people in the military too. You don't know how good you have it until it's gone.
Yeah,
And some people they want to say, "Oh, I want to get a new first line supervisor. I want to get a new. I want to get a new. I want to go to a new company for the army. It's a. I want to go to a new unit." Well, you don't know how good you have it until it's gone. The
right.
grass is not always greener on the other side.
It's true. It's true.
And the fact that everyone wanted Ryan Day fired after November 30th, I thought was a bit preposterous. And yes, did he absolutely call one of his worst games? Absolutely. It's not, it's without a doubt. But to have him fired is kind of ridiculous
Hmm.
and overblown because what do you think if you were in that situation? How would you react?
Right.
So,
Well, yeah, it's hard for me to put. I try to put myself in Ryan Day's shoes because
mhm.
I mean I did coach high school basketball. Yeah, I know it's nowhere
Yeah,
even
it's
close
nowhere
to
near the.
relatable to Ohio State football, which is probably. I mean, I'm going to say that Ohio State being a football coach at Ohio State next to the president of the United States of America and maybe a couple other handful of jobs I'm not thinking of, might be one of the more stressful jobs you could do as a human being. Um,
Absolutely.
it's definitely top 10, I would think. I would put Alabama football up there pretty high as well as being a pretty stressful job. Um, but obviously a brain surgeon, he's got a pretty stressful job too. but
Yeah.
but I mean, can you just sit there and sit there, and it's kind of funny to chuckle and laugh about it, but we're putting Ryan Day's job as the head coach of Ohio State in the same breath as being the president of the United States and a brain surgeon when it comes to stress level. Like, so it's hard to put yourself in his shoes is what I'm getting at.
Absolutely.
But to see the, do you think when he won the national championship, do you think it was more relief or
Absolutely. It's
exuberance?
100% relief. I think that man was having like 20,000 pounds worth of dead weight on his back. And with all the, everyone's saying that he's a failure. Everyone's saying that, like, I'm a guy that doesn't like to hear that I'm a failure. I don't like anyone saying that they're a failure.
Right.
It's it's with all that weight of all that negativity, all that people are saying you can't do it. If someone keeps saying you can't do it, eventually you think to yourself you can't do it.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
and
Self-doubt begins to creep in. Yeah.
and the fact that we kept doubting him, thinking that he wasn't going to make it to become a champion, I think is a bit, in hindsight, I think that us as a fan base really needs to appreciate him a lot more, what he's been
Hmm.
through.
Yeah.
And
That's a
yet,
good point.
for some reason, though, it doesn't satisfy Ohio State fans enough.
Right. Well,
And,
we always, and I think some of this is because as Ohio State fans, you you've been spoiled on two fronts. Okay,
mhm,
number one, we are, like you mentioned, the most successfully sustained program in the history of college football. Right.
mhm.
Number two, you have the ghost of Woody Hayes always looming over the program. Five national championships from a man who coached 20 plus years for the program. Um, and it might even be 30 plus. I'd have to go back. I'm trying to remember now exactly how long his tenure was. It might have been 30. Anyways, he won five national championships at Ohio State. No other coach at Ohio State has won more than one. Urban won one, Tressel won one, Mike Brown won one, and now Ryan Day won one.
Yeah, it's
If Ryan Day wins one more national championship now, he puts himself like ahead of Tressel and Urban and Mike Brown. Like that's incredible to think about. But that unfair expectation that you talk about from this fan base, I think has a lot to do with we're always chasing the ghosts of Woody Hayes in a way.
so if that's the case, Eric,
Hmm.
would we ever be satisfied?
No, I don't think so. I think there's always going to be a portion of the fan base that's looking ahead to the next one, right?
Yeah,
Now,
and I'm one of them. But the thing is,
sure.
though, is they're so hard to come by. Even one is like it's beautiful to see it.
Yeah. Well, it kind of you're dancing all over the conversation that we had about oh trying to define dynasty in the 21st century in college football. I think Nick Saban's success at Alabama, whether it was done properly or not. But that success that he had at Alabama, winning, was it seven national championships or something like that? It's so unrealistic.
Hmm.
It really is. That it kind of puts the rest of college football like in this weird dynamic where everybody's always kind of like, yeah, that's great, but it's not Alabama great, right? And that's really unfair because I don't think it'll ever be accomplished like that again. I just don't. I
It
really
won't.
don't. Because it's going to be too hard to win that many times in that short amount of time because of the college football playoff, NIL,
Hmm.
transfer portal, and which is why Nick Saban got out of it, man, because he knew like I'm going to tarnish my reputation because I
Hmm.
cannot sustain this. It's unsustainable in this new era of college football. That's just my 2 cents.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I think that he read the room and he was like, "Eh, my time is as the greatest co- greatest coach in college football is starting to catch up with me." Everything I was doing behind closed doors is starting to catch up to me.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in karma,
Mm-hmm.
and karma always comes back to bite you. It
Sure
always
does.
does. And I think this was Nick Saban's karma because once it became fully legal for everyone else, the SEC has not been the same.
It hasn't, nor will it be. I do not anticipate the SEC having a. I don't anticipate the SEC having the type of run like they had in the 2000s, where for the better part of a decade and a half to 2 decades, they ran college football. They were doing NIL for 2 decades when no one else was allowed to, and that gave them
Mhm.
such a huge advantage. And any SEC fan who watches this interview, Tyler, is going to be already mad. They're going to be defensive and they're going to say that's not true. It absolutely is true. It's 100% true. Everybody knows it. Just go spend spend 2 hours and look up how many stories of SEC players who have said after the fact that they got a
Mhm.
bag or their parent got a bag or their uncle got a bag. And it was all over that conference. They just avoided turning themselves in on it to the NCAA because they knew they had such a good thing going. That's where the whole SEC chants come from, man. It's like a we hate each other, but we're not going to allow anybody outside of the SEC to break up what we have. So we're just going to sit here and pat each other on the back type of mentality. It's crazy to me to watch how the SEC roots for one another and celebrates one another's championships.
It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
It doesn't, because you look at us in Michigan, like we absolutely were rooting for Alabama to beat Michigan in their bowl game
Absolutely.
because we hate them. All
We
right.
were rooting for Washington.
Yeah. Uh, it's crazy to me to want to sit here and be like, yeah, we're gonna celebrate Michigan's national championship in 2023 because they're in the Big Ten. Heck, no, we're not. No way.
Why would we do that? That's like saying that's like disgracing everything that Woody Hayes stood for,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
everything that Ohio State stands for. You're completely disregarding it at that point.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more about this hate for the team up north, Tyler. I know that's one of your favorite subjects. Tyler, by the way, Tyler calls into the call-in show. You by far and away call in more than anybody else. I appreciate that, Tyler. And more times than not, you want to talk about something that is permeating out of Ann Arbor, whether it was a comment, whether it's news, whether it's the allegations, whatever it is. Where
Mhm.
does your hate for Michigan come from?
Where does my hate come from, though? Their arrogance.
Okay,
It's
dive into that for me.
it, like even if I understand arrogance to an extent, Eric,
Hmm.
but you haven't done anything in since 1948 as a program, but you think you're on the level of Ohio State. One other thing that really gets under my nerves about them is all their lies. I can't stand people that lie. Like it's you're completely disregarding everything that's like lack of trust and you're burning bridges.
Hmm.
And Michigan fans, I don't even think they lie so much. I don't even think they believe they. I think honestly, they believe their own lies.
They're just habitual liars, type of, and so because of that, they just automatically believe every lie they have. Yeah.
Yes.
they feed into one another's lies too, right? So
Mhm.
it's like I could go to the doctor and the doctor says, hey, buddy, you need to lose weight. And I come home and my wife says to me, you don't need to lose weight. You look perfect just the way you are. Well, she can tell me that, and that's a nice thing to say to me,
Yeah.
but it's also not helping me because you're just feeding into the narrative that I don't need to lose weight, right? And so
Mhm.
I think sometimes that's what happens to them. They get in their own silo as
Mhm.
fans and they feed into each other's narratives and they start to believe those narratives. Like take for instance the Ryan Day's brothers, the FBI agent who turned
Oh
him
my
in.
goodness, I hate that one so much.
Like it's so false. There's no truth to it at all. Yet they feed into that narrative and they believe that thing. They still believe it, Tyler.
I know. I'm like, it's been what, 8 months?
Well, the NOA came out, um, um, or National Letter of NLA, whatever it is, National Allegations
National
Letter of
letter of, I
Allegations.
don't know what it is.
Yeah. Um. Anyways, it proved that it was one of their own staff members that turned them in.
Yeah,
It had nothing to do with Ohio State. I did a video where the first time anybody mentioned something fishy's going on here was Greg Schiano at Rutgers.
I know.
It wasn't even Ryan Day, but yet they feed into this narrative that they've created, and so some of that I think is how they get to their arrogance, right?
Hmm.
We are so much smarter than anybody else, and so because we believe something that's truth and everybody else is believing a lie, right? And it's like because you do this, it creates this false sense of arrogance about them.
Hmm.
So I agree with you. I've always called them pompous, arrogant fools. That's who they are.
Yep.
It's like the people who say, oh, "I have a Michigan degree, and so that makes me better than you." Yet at least 99% of the Michigan fans I deal with don't even have a Michigan degree.
I
But yet,
know.
but yet they use it as an excuse. Like we're better than you because our education's better than you. It's like you don't even have one. Like you don't even have a degree from Michigan. Why are you using that as a defense? To me it's stupid.
And
More
that,
arrogance.
yeah, that's another reason why I hate. Their arrogance really gets under my skin, Eric. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's like a lot of people in the military too. Do say, oh, like some people they falsify being in the military,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and so what they do is they get all these awards. These they it's called stolen valor. So
Yeah.
stolen valor is basically people dressing up like they're in the military impersonating
Mm-hmm.
and they get free benefits.
Mm.
Yeah.
Isn't
So
that against the law?
it is against the law.
Yeah, it's like impersonating a law enforcement officer. It's against the law, and yeah, okay.
So that's what I feel like Michigan fans do. They say, oh, Michigan education is the greatest in the world. Do you have a Michigan? Do you have a degree from Michigan? No. Then why are you mentioning about it?
Yeah. Why are you using it as a defense, right? Yeah. It's like I'll defend Ohio State's education, but number one, I went to Ohio State. But uh, number two, I only use it in defending Ohio State when someone attacks Ohio State's education system. Like I don't present my argument against a Michigan fan and go right to Ohio State's education. Like, well, that's because it's not as good as Michigan. It's false. That's false. It's
You're
absolutely
going to
false.
a pristine school. What? Hey, if you get into college, you get into college. Like I said on Thursday, Eric, like with the whole Steve Dace thing too.
Yeah.
It's say Michigan fans say that Justin Fields didn't earn his degree for going to class, and he got it online. You got a degree one way or another. I know a lot of people in the military do get degrees from doing it online.
Well, making an argument that online school is somehow less valuable is also it'd be kind of like saying a horse-drawn carriage is still the best way to transport yourself. Like, wait, what? Like,
What?
technology's advanced, guys. Like, it's okay to accept technology and be like, actually, I think it might have actually been Zach Smith that said it. Uh, but online courses can actually be more difficult, and it's because you can't cheat. You can't
Yeah.
cheat at them. Like, you either know the material or you don't. You can't be sitting there next to somebody in class cheating off what they're putting on their test. So um, that's actually a really good point. I online courses were um, introduced to me at the end of my collegiate career.
Hmm.
So about around 2006, 2007 is when and so I took my all of my final courses basically online, but I was also a husband and a father and a full-time employee. It just made more sense for me to do it that way. But when I first started out, there weren't any online courses yet for college. That was something that was being talked about in 2000, 2001. But when I started out at Ohio State, I started out as a journalist in the
Hmm.
School of Journalism. I was a journalist major, and then I switched my major and actually went to and then left Ohio State and went to a different school. But I digress. But you'll never sit here and hear me like come at somebody else and be like, "Well, your degree's not as good as Ohio State's." That's just a dumb argument when in all reality, I can't tell you how many people went to liberal arts schools that and spent 30, $40,000 a year going to those liberal arts schools, Tyler, and they're working at Starbucks. It's like, what'd you do with it? You know, it's not so much what kind of degree you got or where you got it. It's what you do with it that matters.
Yes. Because at the end of the day, Eric, a degree is a piece of paper that you
Yeah,
hang up on the wall. It's how you apply it.
there are some degrees that are still you need to have. Like if you're going to be a doctor, like
Yeah.
you know what I mean. But the general ed type of degrees, they open doors for you, not necessarily uh, create who you are. So that being said, Tyler, a military man that you are, still living there on um, I almost said
Uh,
campus, but it's not campus. But
Fort Bragg.
yeah, living in Fort Bragg there with your wife there. Are there any other Buckeye fans there that have you've met yet?
Oh, I've seen a. We're everywhere, Eric.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, it is. But unfortunately, too, Eric, there are Michigan fans here too.
Uh-oh. Oh.
Yeah, yeah. I ran into one after the game on November 30th.
Yeah, so what was that like?
Honestly, he wasn't that bad of a Michigan fan. He actually he was respectful.
Was he?
It like there are some that I can like, but the other two that I met here, no, they completely lack respect.
Most of them do. I've learned most of them do. All right, let's talk about the stuff we're wearing here, the national championship, baby.
Yep.
So, give me a rundown of the season in your mind. When you think back on this year's national championship, the 2024 season, what are you going to think about and why?
I think that looking back on this championship, I'm going to look at the resilience, the intestinal fortitude of this team, and being put through the proverbial ringer, putting through proverbial like you are not a champ. I know you have done nothing.
Yeah.
So for them to have the mental resilience
Mm-hmm.
to say, yeah, we haven't beat them, but we brought home the biggest prize.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. It definitely it's definitely unique in the aspect of this is the first Ohio State team ever to lose against their rival and still win a national championship. And Michigan fans like to use that as some kind of trolling chip where they basically say you can't be a national champion without beating your rival, which is false. It happened before. It happened in the SEC multiple times. Just because it hadn't happened in the Big Ten yet or with Michigan or Ohio State doesn't mean that it can't happen. And for the first time in this particular rivalry, it did happen. Um, are you afraid that because of what happened this year and because of the playoff structure moving forward, that it has diminished the rivalry at all?
Honestly, no, Eric. I think that Michigan fans, it's stuck in their craw because you know
Okay.
why? It, the fact that we scrutinized their championship because they didn't earn it
Yeah.
and we done it the right way, it really you can see on Twitter they don't like it at all.
No.
And I already know what our they call us a Mickey Mouse championship because we haven't
Right.
beat them.
Right.
But what have they done to actually say that they earned their championship?
Yeah, they're the Black Sox championship, right? They're the it's the a scandal. It's scandalous, right? It's Yeah, I mean, you can call something whatever it is. And in a lot of ways, Tyler, I think that the reason why they do that is they're trying to make themselves feel better about their own failures. Um, the
Oh,
fact that
absolutely.
the fact that Jim Harbaugh and half that coaching staff left and got out of Dodge after the national championship, where Ohio State lost three coaches. You know, they lost. I think it was like seven, 6 or 7. Um, there's always going to be some turnover after a national championship because everybody who's assistants becomes more desirable. But
Hmm.
I've never seen a head coach leave and go somewhere else after winning a national championship, unless they were retiring. Were retiring on top, right? The fact
Yeah.
that he's like, I'm getting out of Dodge, talking about Jim Harbaugh and all these other coaches, it to me is just a sign of guilt. It's such a sign of guilt, and I will for the life of me never understand, Tyler, why they defend that man like they do. Because if the shoe was on the other foot, if that was
Hmm.
if that was Ryan Day that was caught up in this scandal, I know for a fact this fan base would be irate about that. Not
Oh, absolutely.
defending, not defending him to the gills, dude. But that's what they do, and I think that that's a sign of desperation. What do you think?
Personally, I think they know that they've they've been the subject of our beatdowns for so long that they needed to find something to make them feel better about themselves. So instead of actually beating us outright, they instead bully us and think that, oh, if we can't beat them outright, we need to find a way that we're going to just beat them unconventionally in a way that's completely disregards of the what this rivalry stands for.
Mm-hmm.
which I think is the most, in my opinion, the most frustrating part about it is right. Urban Meyer said this is the hardest hitting rivalry, but it's also the most respected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they've ruined that. They've ruined
It
it. It's tainted. It's
it
tainted now because you can't look back at the history of this rivalry without looking at those last 4 years of Jim Harbaugh without an asterisk next to it. First off, you've got the 2020 COVID game that they skip out on, right?
mm-hmm.
First time in over 100 years they didn't even play the game. And then you have the next 3 years of him winning the game where you're kind of like, what is going on here? Something's different. And of course, now we know what it is. It was Connor Stallions and the cheating scandal that made it different. And it really does put a kind of like this stain on what was, in a lot of ways, even though heated and hated and uh, the hardest hitting game and sometimes even dirty, but it
Yeah.
was respectable. And now it's not. It's gone way beyond that to where you had to literally cheat the game of football, like Chris says, in order to get up on your opponent. And it'll be very interesting how this thing all goes down. Obviously, no one knows exactly what the NCAA is going to do. I know that
Mm-hmm.
Scoop's got an idea. Um, other people say nothing's going to happen if you talk to them. I honestly have no clue. I feel I've always been weary of the NCAA because I just feel like the NCAA doesn't have the teeth that it once had, nor the backbone. But we'll see. I hope I'm wrong. What would you like to see happen? Number one, and number two, what do you think will happen?
Honestly, they deserve the death penalty.
Which would be what in your mind?
They lose the championship.
Okay.
They lose the Rose Bowl. They lose all the wins against us. They lose all the wins against all the Big Ten. They lose scholarships. Sharon Moore gets fired and gets a show cause. I,
The only thing you're missing is bowl bands there.
yeah, I know. I was gonna get there, but I was also thinking too. Like, does their president get fired?
Oh, Choi, or I think his name's Choi. I mean, he's defended them the whole time since he's been in office. He came in, what was it, 2 years ago, and has been an advocate in their defense. So maybe.
I think you just burn the whole thing down and just start from scratch.
Well, there's a lot of people who would like to see Ann Arbor burned down.
And so, and I know you mentioned that you don't trust the NCAA. Well, from my experience, Eric, in the military, the NCAA or the FBI, or they can find anything. And so when you first join the military, right, you get a background check.
Hmm.
So they do background checks for like 10 plus years, 15 years, 20 years, and they can find anything. So if Michigan really thinks that they can get away with it, the only way I see it is how Justin Spiro says it, through a loophole.
Mm,
It's on a technicality or something like that, where
right.
they can the NCAA, FBI, they can find anything. And for on military post, it's the NCIS, CID. So they're for Army, it's a CID, which is Criminal Investigation Division.
Mm-hmm.
So they go through your phones, they go through your computers, they go through. They can find they can find anything. So if Michigan really thinks they can like get out of this, it's like they're not doing themselves any favors.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's interesting. All right, let's turn the page and look towards this season, dude. What's your
Okay.
expectations of Ohio State in 2025?
I know there's gonna be drop off on defense because you're losing 8 guys that had a lot of
Yeah.
starts.
Yeah.
But in a way, it's kind of refreshing in that way because you're getting new guys in. You're getting a lot of. I can't even say new guys because some of the guys also got some playing time too. So you're gonna have a new looking defense, but in a way, I think with the offensive line, with it being a strength this year, I think it's gonna help out the defense because if you keep the defense on the sidelines, you're resting them, and it's gonna make it much more. I think this is an offensive led team this year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a offensive line, which we predict is going to be the strength of this team,
Yeah.
you lean onto them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also good to hear that James Peoples is really having a great winter workout, dude.
Oh,
I don't know.
absolutely.
I don't know you saw the picture he posted on his X account, but he looks like he looks like a superhero, man. He's like
Yeah.
busting out of his t-shirt there. He's ripped, man. What a new starter are you looking forward to watching the most and why?
What new starter am I looking forward to seeing and why? Are you talking about both offensively and defensively?
Either one, man.
Offensively, I I say it's a good question. I say James Peoples
Okay.
because I see a lot of J.K. Dobbins in him.
That's a good comparison. Yeah. I hope so. I liked me
Yeah.
some JK, all right? Yeah, I liked me some JK. Arvel Reese is the one on defense that I'm really excited to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are some people worried about trying to replace Cody Simon's production. He led the team in tackles. I think it was 100 and some. I forget the exact number. But you're getting your second and third leading tacklers back in Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs.
Yeah.
And I think Arvel Reese is a phenomenal athlete. Um, Chris called him over on Menace to Sports, said he's the most SEC like linebacker we've had in a long time. I think that was a really, really good comparison
Hmm.
to label him that way. Um, so give me a what it like if Ohio State gets this many wins, I'll be happy. Is it 10? Is it another 10-2 season?
Well, with the schedule, like
Schedule's not easy.
If we get past Texas,
That says a lot.
yeah, that'll tell me a whole lot about this team. It's because I don't, and even if with all the guys James Franklin's bringing back, I don't trust him.
As we like to say on the OHIO podcast, James Franklin going to James Franklin himself at some point.
Yeah, and Illinois, they're coming up.
They're
They're
coming
coming
on.
up.
They're coming on, and that's at Champaign.
Yeah, we don't play great at Champaign,
No,
but when you here's my only thing that's really like giving me like pause and thinking like we're gonna when you have when you taste the championship,
mm-hmm.
you want it more.
Yeah, you want it again, and a lot of these guys want it for themselves as starters now.
Yes.
Like they were backups. And yeah, it's great we won a national championship, but I was a backup, right? Like I want to win a national championship as a starter. And so there's this level of this domino effect that takes place. They did it, so now I want to do it. Which happened in for Alabama. It also happened for Georgia too. Georgia had back great teams though. That being said, is beating Michigan this year really what it's all going to boil down to for you though, like it does for me? Or are you kind of beyond that? It's just like it doesn't matter as long as we get to the playoffs.
That's such a good question.
That's why I asked it, Tyler.
I know. It's I think that with Matt Patricia, with everyone that's saying that Matt Patricia's a like in the
Defensive savant, right? Like
yeah. With
yeah.
well, I was gonna go into the media.
Yeah, okay.
So the media keeps saying that, oh, this is a terrible hire. I'm like, is it now, or is it just you're scrutinizing him because you haven't seen it yourself?
And it depends on what portion of the media you're talking about too. Like there's a lot of guys on the beat who are just going to be rah guys regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Doug Maurice is really the hardest one against the hire, and he's actually the one I kind of respect the most. So
Yeah.
that's kind of interesting to me that he went that hard to the other side of that hire. But I get it. I understand why he's going that way.
Mm-hmm.
But other guys who I respect, Kirk Barton and Zach Smith, both like the hire.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's really interesting too. So there's both sides of that coin. Um, you know, I think when it comes to Matt Patricia and that hiring, Ryan Day's culture and leadership is going to mean a lot in this thing. Like if Matt
Absolutely.
Patricia can keep his nose clean and just be a football coach, it could be a great hire. Um, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes down.
And the
Uh,
reason why I brought that up, Eric, was
yeah.
because I don't remember who said it. Someone said that Matt Patricia was hired to beat Michigan.
Mm.
And
Might have been Corey. I think Corey said that.
yeah, I do
But he might
believe
have got
that.
it from someone else. I don't know. But
But I
I,
do recall him saying that though.
yeah.
So if that's the case, that we hired him for Michigan, I think it'll be a success. Because I don't think he's done well against power run games. And Michigan doesn't throw the football. They don't.
They weren't able to. That's the thing. They weren't able to. What do you think about the Brian Hartline promotion to OC?
I love it.
Yeah, why is that?
Because you're already our strength is our wide receivers
Mm-hmm.
and our passing game. So your best recruiter is now your offensive coordinator. He's already got tutelage from Chip Kelly. and how to run a offense. So it's you're gonna I like it for the fact that he knows how to open up a passing game as a former wide receiver himself.
Mm-hmm.
So my only question I have with him is, are you gonna what are you gonna do when it comes to run blocking? Because we haven't seen him call any run plays before yet.
Right.
I know his receivers were fantastic at blocking last year. So,
Well, and that's what the Tyler Bowen hire and all these offensive line coaches as analyst hires were all about. I think is to make sure that he's up to speed on the run game and knows how to utilize that in calling a good game offensively as the play caller. Tyler, we've almost been going an hour, believe it or not. This went by fast.
wow.
Let let's end it here with this question. It's the question I like to ask
Okay.
fans if at the end of interviews and players, former players, when if I don't forget, sometimes I forget. Like last week with Dennis, I forgot to ask him this question. But what does it mean to you, Tyler, to be a Buckeye? Can you give me one word that would explain it, and then define that for me, and what it means to you to be a Buckeye?
Pride. You take ownership in your team, whether it's you win, you lose. You you take it like a man when you lose, and when you win, you reap all the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
It's oh, you have to take pride in your in ownership that you whether you like the results on the field, the results from the decision making from Ross Bjork and Ted Carter, you have to like trust in you have to trust them in their judgment to make sure that they're leading you down the right path to success.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Pride. I like it, man. Well, Tyler, this has been a lot of fun. Let me thank you again for being one of the moderators during our live shows. I really do appreciate it. It's been good to get to know you
Mm-hmm.
and to get to experience this fandom called Ohio State Buckeye Nation with you. Um, are you on X by chance?
Yes,
Are
I
you on?
am.
Where can people follow you at? What's your handle there?
My handle is Tyler Kerestly at 0758.
0758. Tyler Kerestly 0758. Look him up on Twitter, everybody. Give the guy a follow. He's going places, man. He's leading Buckeye Nation. Tyler, it's great to have you on the show. Appreciate you spending an hour with me talking Buckeyes. We'll do it again, my man. As always, everybody, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH. St. Carmen, Ohio, with all your heart. Till next time, Tyler, you know what to do. OH,
I
go Bucks.